All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Planters Knowledge Vodcast. I am your host, Dr. Kathleen Walls, and I am here tonight with author Gil Rolon. And I am super excited to have him. I had the opportunity to meet him a couple weeks ago at the Plymouth Meeting authors event. There were about 50 authors there, and he was one of them. And as soon as I saw his book title, and then he began to tell me what it was about, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, I see in your eyes that you get it." I was like, I get I get it. And oh boy, do you need to be a guest. So for those who are new to the show, welcome. I'm so happy to have you join us. And for those who are regulars, thank you and welcome back. For those who are new, I tell you now, get whatever it is that you need in order to take some notes. If it is a pen and paper, if you need to open up an extra screen and get some notes, because you're going to hear something tonight that is going to have a positive impact on your life. Here on Planners Knowledge, I interviewed authors from different genres. We learn about their books as well as their author's journey. So if you have thought about writing a book, if you know somebody who's interested in writing a book, make sure you tell them to come on, share the link, have them join Ask Dr. Walls 525, subscribe to it over here on YouTube. I know I'm competing with Thursday night football in about 15 minutes. I am in Philadelphia and I know the Eagles are about to fly. You just put them on mute. You can watch them and listen to us. You can do both. I trust in your abilities. So, with
Yes.
that said, good evening, everyone. Please be sure to join us in the chat room and let's talk with Gil. So, Gil, thank you for joining us on this evening. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I want to thank you for this opportunity. Like you said, when we first met, there was an instant connection that we were in the same field of empowering other people to change
Mm-hmm.
their lives, to improve their lives, and also being authors, self-published authors that are on a mission to make
Yes,
things better for ourselves and for all our readers.
yes, yes. Well, tell the people a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to get into who you are as an author. And let me just shout out first. We have Regina Goodrich is saying good evening, and we have Afro Get On TV is saying hello. So hello to you all. Please, the rest of you who are listening, I know there's more people listening. Please be sure just say hello, good evening in the chat. You can also put where you're calling in from, where you're joining us from. So go ahead, Gil. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, sure. My parents were born and raised in Puerto Rico. I was born in the Bronx, so I'm what's called a New Yorican.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up, unfortunately, in a single parent household. My father and my mother split up when I was about 3 years old. And as you'll learn from my book, it was a very scary environment.
Mm.
I was born in 1963, so late 60s, early 70s. The Bronx was not the best place to be. There was a lot of crime and violence and poverty.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom was that single, hardworking mom that took care of us. She made sure we always had a roof over our head and food to eat. And
Mm-hmm.
even though she was on public assistance, she also worked um, cleaning other people's homes. And
Okay.
she was just nonstop working to take care of us. And
Mm-hmm.
all she wanted us to do was to do good at school.
Yes.
Um, and as I grew up, I also grew up in a very controlling religion and
Mm.
gave me a lot of good qualities, but it didn't teach me how to be an independent thinker.
Mm-hmm.
And as the religion progressed, it seemed to be more about their platform and their goals versus really preaching the word of God and living Christ's example.
Mm-hmm.
This religion was Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
Ultimately, I left it about 15 years ago, but it did shape my life.
Okay.
Um, but I was always the type of person that if I wanted to know something, I would read and learn. And I just loved art and fixing things and taking things apart. So I went to a vocational high school where I took digital electronics.
Hmm.
And from there, I graduated. And fortunately, it was the start of the computer era in
Okay.
81.
Yes.
And I got a job with a typewriter company that was now selling these new Apple computers.
Oh,
So yeah, so they sent me to Boston and I learned how to fix them. And I was a field tech in New York City, traveling all over the place, installing and fixing computers. And that's how I started my IT career.
wow.
So by day, I'm still an IT guy. I've been doing
Hmm.
it for over 35 years. I love it. Um, but it also came with its own challenges because
Yeah.
IT is a very male dominating, aggressive environment, especially when I was growing up in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so here I am now, an author, and all those things built to why I wrote the book that I wrote.
Got you. Well, part of me is sitting up here laughing that you started working with typewriters and here you are writing now, right? So it's always interesting to me when I listen to the author's journey, how there were seeds planted along the way that many times you didn't recognize along the way that it was going to lead to becoming the author that you are. So, as you mentioned, there's a lot that led up to this moment. When did you realize and say, hey, I want to write a book, or somebody said to you, I think you should write a book? How did it work for you?
For me, it was like a light switch came on.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in my life in 2008, I was 45 years old. I considered myself a successful IT professional. I had a family. Um, we were doing well, even though my wife at the time was dealing with lupus.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a challenge, and I was a single uh, person bringing in the income.
Mm-hmm.
We still tried our best to do our best to raise our kids and give them what we didn't get as
Mm-hmm.
kids. But I had this heavy burden in my life. Everything felt fearful, especially all my responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was a father. I was in the religion, so I was a minister.
Mm-hmm.
I was an IT guy, so I had my responsibilities at work.
Mm-hmm.
So I found it so stressful to deal, like give everyone what they needed, the
Yes.
family, the job, the religion. And it just was getting to a point where it was just sucking the joy out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I could only enjoy my success and my family to a certain point because I would just be weighed down with this fear and anxiety,
Yeah.
feeling like nothing's going to last. I'm just waiting for the next bad thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I did see bad things happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everyone does, but it felt heavier. It just
Yeah.
felt like it was proving the point that my life will always be filled with pain and suffering.
Yeah. It's like that external confirmation of internally what you were thinking
Right.
and feeling. Yeah.
So I was getting to the point where I had to figure, why do I have these burdens? I really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2008, Oprah had this book club with this author named Eckhart Tolle.
Mm-hmm.
The book is called A New Earth.
Yes.
And the book was all about teaching you how your ego works.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me why I was doing all the things I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
so why everyone around me was doing all the things they were doing. And I realized, well, I can fix myself. I can't worry about everyone else.
Yes.
So I went on this journey to figure out, okay, even though his book exposed me to the concept of the ego,
Mm-hmm.
he really didn't really fully say, well, how do you start that journey?
Yes.
So I started reading other books about
Mm-hmm.
psychology. Um, and again, everything was a piecemeal information of, this is why your brain does this. This is why your body does that. This is why your trauma is affecting you from your childhood. All
Mm-hmm.
these things that I'm learning, but there was not one book to really take me from start to finish to
Yes.
understand the journey to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was learning how to heal myself, it was like a 5-year journey. I was taking down notes and journaling, And when I finally saw things working, when I finally saw that I was changing,
Yes.
all these burdens were starting to lift off me,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why don't people know about this?
Yeah.
Why did I have to work so hard to learn this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
when the light bulb hit and says, this has to be a book.
Okay.
Because I needed this book 5 years ago,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and it prepared me for the next 5 years of great loss in my family.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the genesis of this book.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, it's so true. We go through things and other people are going through it too. And so many times when we're going through it, we think we're the only ones. And then once we've gone through it, then it's just like, number one, I know I'm not the only one. And many times you are given exactly what it sounds like happened to you. You're given the steps and the keys to help other people unlock what they need to unlock along their journey.
Right.
So now 2008 happens, you got it, you take 5 years, you're working on yourself, you're doing the work, you're working the process, and then when do you say now it's time for me to write?
I was actually starting my first draft. I looked it up, was in 2015.
Okay.
Um, that's when I was starting to say, this is a book.
Mhm.
And let me compile all of my notes and start drafting what this book looks like.
Yes.
And how am I going to explain the process of change
Mhm.
and to heal? Because
Mhm.
it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a learned process, but I did learn it is a step by step process.
Mhm.
Most places are very vague. Well, they might just say, just think positive,
Right.
be the boss, just do this. But they don't like, okay, but how do I do that when I feel like I have no power?
Yes.
Feel I have no choice.
Mhm.
I feel weighed down. I don't have
Mhm.
energy to do this thing. I don't believe it. I don't feel it.
Yes.
And people have to learn that it is a process.
Yes.
Um, so I just went on this internal journey, tested it out. It worked for me, and
Mhm.
it's still working for me. I'm still a
Mhm.
work in progress. Everyone is, right?
Yep.
That's life, right?
Yes.
Um, so let me read to you my golden vision of,
Please do.
of why, of basically, I'm hoping everything that I do creatively will help people in this way.
Yeah, Gil, show them the cover of your book. I know we got it over your shoulder, but
Yes.
also show it to them so they can pull it. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, lose the weight, mind, body, and spirit. And then what's the small print say again?
It says how to remove the emotional and physical burdens that hold you back from living a life of love, health, and abundance.
All right, y'all. So now I put the link to his website in the chat room. They can get the book there and they can also get the book on Amazon, correct?
Correct.
All right. All right.
And
Go
also
ahead.
Barnes and Noble.
Okay, excellent. So while y'all are listening, you can go ahead and go buy that book for yourself and for some other people. Go
Okay.
ahead. No, no subtle hints over here. Go ahead.
Okay. The mission and the purpose to awaken in others the belief that they don't have to accept their current life story because of their life history or traumas of the past, to inspire change and the healing and removal of the emotional and physical burdens that stop us from the life we want and deserve.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that is my goal for this book because we all feel deep down we can do it, but we
Yeah.
just don't believe it.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this book will turn on switches in the reader and say, yes, I can do it.
Excellent. Excellent. So many people need that, and I feel, and if it's resonating with you, put a one in the chat room. I know there's a lot of people listening who are going, yes, please tell us how. Please tell us how. So now, for you, what do you recall as part of your journey? Like, what was that step one for you? Because you are a technician, you are an IT person, so you are looking to break it down. What do you recall as kind of your step one process to help people? Well, some people are putting multiple ones in.
So you're saying the process of writing?
Yeah, the process of writing and even this process of creating the process for people.
What I did is I realized that this was a multi-step process.
Yes.
Like for instance, the first thing I realized, I want to change my life. There's so many things I want to change in life, and I've tried so hard, but it just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized, you know what? I don't really know how to change my life.
Mm-hmm.
And all the books I've read encourage you to change your life and maybe give you little tricks and biohacks, but they don't really tell you the steps.
Yeah.
So I started to look at, well, what is needed for change?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the process and the steps of change.
Yeah.
So I saw in my case, I went through these steps. My first step of change was suffering,
Mm.
because all change comes from suffering if you recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're willing to see that you're the one causing that suffering and only you can change it.
Oh, now you just smacked some people in the face with that one, Gil. We got to give them a moment to recover and come back to center. Go ahead. Tell them again. They what? They're responsible and the cause of their what?
Yeah, everyone is responsible for their suffering. And what I mean by that is it's the choices we make. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, suffering can come from our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
or it can come in, throughout your life, right? But ultimately, the way we react to that suffering, we tend to hold on to that suffering,
Yeah.
and we make choices that keep us in that suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So the choices we make and the things that we pursue creates the life that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is external, but we have to appreciate that it's our choices, everyday choices, that create the life we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And the next step is awareness. Once you are aware that you're the one and you're the only one that can change your life, you take that empowerment and then you move on to the next stage, which is the doing stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all the work takes place. You have to do all the things you need to do to change your life. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the longest process, right? And
Yep.
it comes with, and what happens sometimes, the doing creates suffering and you end up going back to the suffering stage. So,
Honey. Yes.
right?
Go ahead. Yes.
So you get in this cycle where you know what you got to do, you try to do it, you give up, and then you go back to suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's a learned process. If you keep it going, ultimately you just will stay in the doing.
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it rather, you enter the last stage, which is the being stage.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a stage you don't choose, it just happens
Mm-hmm.
because organically you have embraced and changed all the things in your life to embrace the new you.
Mm-hmm.
So you will find, like I found, like, oh, wow, I didn't react the way I used to react. Or I didn't make this bad food choice that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happened. I'm like, whoa, I think I've changed,
Yes.
And in my book, I say the change has to be a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do good and then we fall off the wagon. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but
Yeah.
when you end up going back to the doing,
Come on.
you haven't finished your work.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to suffer a little bit more before you get back to doing.
Mm-hmm.
Before you know it, you're blessed with being a new person. You're
Yeah.
going to be like a butterfly
Mm-hmm.
that's transformed. Once the worm is a butterfly, he cannot change back.
That's right.
Transformation is complete.
Oh, Gil, you
That's
done taken us to church now. Wait a minute. Let me come on over here and grab these tambourines. Because you done went there. Once you have changed, if this is resonating, put a two in the chat room. Once you have changed, you cannot go back. Come on. Once you transform. Go ahead. Keep going.
okay. So the way my book helps with that is each chapter has questions. I
Mm-hmm.
call them e-work for emotional work
Okay.
questions. So it's going to ask you questions related to the chapter to dig deep into your past, into how you see things, how you view things. Because one of the things I learned about change, the things you have to change is the words you use, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot you have to change to make total change.
Yes.
You have to change the way you think, your mindset. Are you a negative person or are you a positive person? Do
Mhm.
you think you can make a change or you feel you can never change?
Mhm.
Those things affect the cycle that you're in.
Yep.
Because once you stop believing in yourself or stop believing in the process, you're going to stay stuck in the suffering and the awareness stage,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
there's things like acceptance. Acceptance is a huge part of change, which
Mhm.
means only accepting the things you have no control over,
Mm.
right? Because there's nothing you can do. You can't change people, you can't change the stream of time. You can only focus on the things that you can change.
Yes.
So holding on to old resentments to, let's say, our parents who may have abused us or whatever people have hurt you, you
Mhm.
have to accept the fact that you can't change them and you can't bring back a relationship that you either never had or could never have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when you accept that, you actually lift the burden because it's a burden to feel that you're responsible for how other people act.
Honey, say it again, Gil. Say it again. It's a burden for what?
It's a burden if you feel you have to control or expect people to give you what they can't give you.
Yes.
You can't change people. You can't change the way they act, the way they think. They have to go through that same
Process.
trial and error that you have to go. So
Mhm.
that's why you have to accept that and just focus on your transformation.
Mhm. Thank you. Look, we could stop the show right now because you done helped a lot of people just in those first 20 minutes. It's real. It is that cycle of doing and suffering is so real as well. And as you were saying it visually, I saw a tire, right? A wheel. And as you're going through the process, the wheel continues to go and you eventually get out of the mud, as you're saying, but you've got to go through it. That's the only way you're going to get to this other side
Mhm.
known as transformation and so forth.
Right. And
Yeah.
and the reader has to realize that all this is a learning process.
Yes.
It's a skill you have to learn.
And I'm so glad that you said that. And that is so important. And you talk about even just mindset change for people to realize that this is a skill. This is a competency that can be built with practice. It can be strengthened over time. So many times people think that you have to be born a certain way or wired a certain way, and that if you don't have it, you won't have it. No, you don't have it, but you can acquire it. It just takes time, skill, intention, and deliberate action.
Correct, correct. And scientists are verifying that the brain can change, it can learn. You can overwrite negative feelings and memories. They may not go away, but you can change how you react to the memory of it,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Um, so, one of the other things I realized, okay, so how do we do this day to day?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I have a 3 cycle phase that you have to go through to make changes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is tell your story.
Yes.
Okay. And what I mean by that is not just repeating the story that hurt you. Let me give you an example. Let's say I was walking from work. I was working late, went to the parking garage,
Mm-hmm.
walking towards my car. A burglar jumps out, hits me on the head, beats me up, and takes my money. That was a very traumatic event.
Yes.
So the story I want the reader to tell is not actually what they suffered, but how they reacted to the suffering
Mm-hmm.
and how it affected their life
Yes.
and how it affected the way they started thinking from that point on.
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mhm.
that telling of the story is to find out, well, what did you lose from that trauma?
Yes.
It's not about what the trauma was. What did you lose?
That's a huge question, Gil. That's
It
a
could be
huge question.
right. It could be safety.
Yes.
It could be feeling. You could literally lose someone you loved. There's so many
Mhm.
things you could lose.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
my experience, I realized when I told my story, um, when I was probably the ages between 5 and 7 or 8, we regularly got burglarized living in the
Mm.
house. So
Mhm.
I would come home from school and maybe the door was broken down, or we came home after church and the windows were broken and they broke
Mhm.
the fire escape. Once they literally broke through an empty apartment through the wall,
Wow.
get into our apartment. And think
Wow.
about it, these were unfortunately druggies because we didn't have anything.
Mhm.
By
Mhm.
the time this was all over, they just started stealing food because we had nothing else to steal,
Wow.
right? And this caused me a lot of fear and pain.
Mhm.
Being the boy of the house, I automatically took the role as the man of the house.
Mhm.
And I felt I had to protect the family.
Mhm.
And as I told my story, I realized, okay, what did I lose? I
Yes.
definitely lost feeling safe in my home.
Yes.
I lost security because I never knew when we were going to get broken into.
Yes.
So I lost this sense of safety.
Mhm.
And I also learned that I had to be afraid and be responsible at the same time.
Mm.
So that's why, as an adult,
Ooh,
I connected responsibility with fear,
look at that.
right? So you see, that's the story I had to tell,
Whoa.
right? And the story
Mhm.
started with that 6-year-old boy.
Yes. Yes.
Understand what that little boy went through and what children experience when they
Mhm.
have trauma.
Mhm.
Whatever trauma it is, mine was fear and detachment, because my father left. That was also an abandonment.
Mhm.
These things that you have to learn by telling your story
Yes.
is not to say don't ever go into the parking lot at night. That's a good lesson, but that's not what you lost.
That's right.
You have to heal what you lost,
Come on.
right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
once you understand what you lost, the
Mhm.
second phase is you have to mourn the past.
Yep.
Whenever you lose something, you have to grieve, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the stages of grief, you have to, whatever age you experience this loss, you have to let that person grieve.
Tell it.
I had to let that little boy grieve the loss of being safe, having a complete family, having a father to make him feel safe, to
Yes.
live in a place where you don't, home is a safety place, not the place for fear,
Yes.
right? I had to go through healing the loss of that,
Yes.
which meant me talking to my inner child to
Mhm.
help them to understand they did nothing wrong, that
Mhm.
parents did the best, my mom did the best she could.
Yeah.
And those fearful things of the past are gone.
Yes.
And it doesn't define me as a person, but I had to heal the feeling that I had to connect fear with responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to go through the stages of denial and anger and depression, finally to acceptance where I realized, okay, this happened to me, but I can be safe now. I know how to create safety in my life,
Mhm.
give myself the love and protection and safety to fill that hole in my heart that was taken away when I lost
Yes.
those things.
Yes. Now, for those who are just joining us, as well as those who have been joining us, if you have any comments and or questions, please be sure to put them in the chat. If you have not subscribed to Ask Dr. Walls 525, please do so. I have put the link to his book in the chat room. Gil, hold up the book cover again, please, so that they can recognize you with it. You can already hear how powerful, there it is. Lose the weight, mind, body, and spirit. You already hear how powerful this book is. What an incredible gift for self, as well as gift for others to start to work through and heal, start the healing process and or continue the healing process. For those who have already begun, this is a wonderful supplement to this process. So go ahead, Gil, you were going to say next part.
The next part is heal your present. So there are things you're going through now that you have to fix,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's your health, your physical health, or your mental health. Um, you have habits you need to get rid of, right? You have relationships you either have to fix or get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things you have to do today that are causing you suffering
Yes.
or stopping you from changing your life.
Yes.
And that's the cycle you go through. You have to tell your story, mourn your past, heal your present.
Yes.
As you go through each layer of your life, you're going to continue on that cycle,
Mm-hmm.
start things to see things falling in place.
Yes.
And those are that's the work you have to do to
Yeah.
change life.
So now tell us this. So you went through this process, you studied it, you analyzed it, you worked it, and then you were able to capture it in the written form. You created this wonderful book for people to work their process through it. What was that like for you to share the process with the world when you finally compiled the book and it was in tangible form? It was out of your head in this form. What was that like for you?
It brought me to tears because I realized that I could never do this before.
Mm-hmm.
It proved to me that I did change my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to be vulnerable because the book I tell so much about my personal journey because I realized people could learn more from other people's example than just books that just spell out, 10 things, 10 top things you can do to feel better about yourself.
Right.
People have to hear the realities of what suffering really looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I finished my draft and I was ready to get it ready for print, um, my wife of 35 years passed away from lupus.
Oh my goodness. My
The very next
condolences.
year,
Wow.
my son, who was 33, died from um, mental illness and drug use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The year after that, my mother passed away from Parkinson's.
Oh my goodness.
So, those 3 years, if I didn't do that work the years before, I would have. People ask me, how did you go through that? I was like, I don't know. But then I realized, well, I did a lot of work
Yep.
and it still was hard. There are certain things I had to shut down emotionally to just be there for the people who needed me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, I almost lost everything because I couldn't work. You know, my wife got cancer from the lupus drugs, and it was, it was terrible to see her slowly wither away, where I had to tend to every need,
Mm-hmm.
and thus I couldn't work,
Mm-hmm.
lost the house. So
Mm-hmm.
it was very, very stressful. But I realized from all the work I did that this, unfortunately, had to accept what was happening,
Yes.
just focus on what I needed to do,
Yes.
make her last days special, and to help her to feel loved and supported.
Mhm. Mhm.
And all the other stuff, I just realized I know the process of grief.
Yep.
So I intentionally started to grieve,
Yeah.
to allow myself to have emotions, because that was another thing that was blocked in my youth, was
Yeah.
expressing emotions and really understanding that it's okay to release these things, and to learn how to monitor and work with your emotions when
Yeah.
and feeling when they're that strong.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you said that. And I'm curious, one, as far as being male and also being a Puerto Rican male, about getting in touch with your emotions. Was that something that was socially permissible? Was that something that was encouraged? And if not, how did you give yourself permission to do so?
I think my experience, because my father wasn't there while I was
Hmm.
being raised, I got that from the men who were in the religion,
Okay.
and just the culture, the New York culture, just man culture, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and it's just something you absorb, and you just feel as a man, I can't be weak. I can't be seen as weak,
Hmm.
especially when I had this fear and anxiety connected to responsibility.
Yeah.
I have to be strong.
Hmm.
So that was another burden that I had to release. And, you know, one of the things I have in the chapter about the spirit is learning not to live a life of judgment is the biggest thing that holds you back.
Hmm.
So me not being able to express my emotions is all about judgment,
Yeah.
all about this is how a man should be.
Yeah.
If you do this, other people will see you this way, and you can't live your life that way.
Yeah. I was doing another show recently and I didn't realize it at the time, but each of the men that were on were from one of the Caribbean islands and talking about being male and touching and expressing emotions and then being from their distinctive islands and being allowed to express fully express and experience right the range of emotions that a human feels and it being okay. So now here you are, we have some new people who have joined the show. Gil, I want you to hold up your book so that they can see it and know it as they go to Amazon and they get this book. We have people over on the Instagram side of life saying, I need that book. This is so true. So I want them to recognize it when they see it. It is available on Amazon. It is also available on your website. And tell them what your website is.
It's Gil Rolon Books, GilRolon books.com.
All right. So you can already hear how powerful this book is for self. And I think for, like I said, for anybody who has been doing the work, for any, you're in process, you've done a lot of work already, or you're just starting the journey. I think this book is a great recommendation for you and for anybody else who you know could be helpful in getting some of this healing work done. What is your price point for your book and what formats does it come in?
You can get the ebook for $14.99. The soft cover is $19.99, and the hardcover is $24.99.
Okay, fantastic. And so the work, as he's already mentioned, there's a cycle, there's a process. He is a technician. So he's taking you through the process. But just like anything else, he can only show you the process, but you have to do the work. This is your journey, your story, as he's talked about, to discover, uncover, tell, and learn. And I love this question with what did you lose from the trauma? Now I'm going to ask you, what did you gain from writing this book?
Well, I gained confidence. I gained self-love. I gained finally understanding and being in touch with myself, with my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like now, I still can get triggered, um, but now I can feel it. I can sense it. I know exactly where it's coming from, and I know what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just as simple as taking a deep breath and asking myself, is this fear that I'm having, is it real fear?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this a memory of the fear of my childhood?
Honey,
Right?
yes.
Before I couldn't ask that question. It just went
Mm-hmm.
straight to fear, anxiety, my body would react.
Yeah.
And it just became a bad experience.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
probably made a choice that made things worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
now I have the process of how to use your body to calm your mind, to examine yourself so you become more um, intuitive than reactive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I still have to deal with all the life's pressures today, but now I finally have a process to feel in control. So I got control, to answer
Yes.
the question. I
Yeah.
finally can make choices that make sense and actually make things better and not make things worse.
Hmm. So now tell me this. You talk about all of the weight that you lost. So we're talking physical, we're talking emotional, spiritual. How did this show up for you, and what can people expect at, or possibly expect? Of course, everybody's journey and process is different. But what did you notice about going through this process besides, as you released rather, the burdens?
Right. Well, from the physical, I lost weight. At my heaviest, I was about 300 pounds. Now I'm about 215.
Mm-hmm.
I lost all the physical burdens of being overweight, pains in my knees, pains in my muscles. I don't have the pains in my stomach and in my head from the anxiety because I released the emotional burdens of seeing everything through the lens of fear and
Mm-hmm.
I saw success in making better decisions in every part of my life, from relationships to career to having a relationship, a closer and better relationship with my son,
Mm-hmm.
and being more open to the people who I want to have a relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
So being open, honest, loving, and I finally show love to myself first so that I could be my best self to love others.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I know my people are saying, "Where's the tambourine, Dr. Walsh?" Here it is. Here it is. Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your transparency in all of this. And I love the fact that you use the phrase self love. So many times we only hear it when it comes to women, and it is self love is not a gender specific thing, it is a human thing that we all have to learn how to do and remember to do for ourselves. So, thank you so much for bringing that phrasing in as
Take
well.
it to the next level.
Yes, please.
In my book, I talk about, well, how do you fall in love with yourself,
Hmm.
right? And when you think about it, well, how do you fall in love with someone else, right?
Yes,
First thing you do on the date, you ask questions to get to know their story,
that's right.
right? So there's that telling your story again.
Hmm.
Right? You have to find out about yourself. You have to understand, why don't you like yourself? Why are you, for me, why is everything a fear for you? Why can't you just be relaxed? Or why do you always have to have negative thoughts or
Yeah,
feel like you have to take all the responsibility
yeah,
instead of sharing the workload,
yeah.
right? So once you get to know yourself, another way you fall in love with someone is you get to know their likes and dislikes, right?
Hmm.
So that you can show them respect and
Yes,
appreciation. You
yes,
value them. So when you're doing the work of healing your present, those are the things you learn that are good for you and the
hmm,
things that are bad for you.
yep.
So when you're falling in love with someone, you're gonna do things for that person to make them feel good.
That's
Oh, I
right.
know they like chocolate, so I'm gonna buy them chocolate.
Hmm.
When it comes to our healing, you'll learn the things that you have to do for yourself to be more disciplined or to make better choices. And you have to look at those things as, this is the way I'm going to show love to myself,
That's right.
because I'm going to give myself these good things that'll make my life better,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you can fall in love with yourself, and you have to have respect for the person, right? You fall in love with. You have to be willing to make sacrifices for their well-being, and you have to do the same thing for yourself.
Hmm.
Put yourself first so you can heal your life, and you have to make sure you're not trying to get love from other people because you're trying to fill a hole that came out of your trauma.
Oh, you just gonna call them out like that, Gil? That's
Yeah, so the holes we have, only we can fill them.
Yes.
So I had to reparent myself for the
Hmm.
things my parents didn't do.
Oh, you just laying people out on the floor. See, that's that pastor in you now. You just tell them about it. Yes, you
Yeah,
do.
you have to, you know, you have to be focused on what you don't want in your life,
Yes.
and just like if you're in a relationship and this person's not good for you, you break that relationship.
Hmm.
And sometimes you have to do that for your own self. You have to break a relationship, whether you have a bad relationship with food, or a
Yes.
bad relationship and how you choose your partners,
Yes.
or how you treat the women in your life.
Yes.
So these are all the things of that cycle of change you have to work at,
Yes.
every day.
Real talk. Real talk. Again, you all know. So, for those who are just joining us, Gil, hold up your book, please. We have some new people over on the Instagram side of life chiming in. I want y'all to see this powerful book called Lose the Weight, Mind, Body, and Spirit. This is author Gil Rolon. Gil, do me a favor, read this small print again because that is so powerful as well.
Sure. How to remove the emotional and physical burdens that hold you back from living a life of love, health, and abundance.
Yes. So this book is available on his website. It is also available on Amazon in Kindle version. So you don't even have to wait. You can buy it and get it right now and start the process. It's also available in paperback as well as hardback. So it's a great book for you to gift self as well as to gift others.
Right.
Uh,
Do we have time for me to read an excerpt?
we sure do. We
Okay.
gonna make time.
This is from the introduction. I did not see that being physically overweight was just a reflection of the weights I was carrying on my mind and spirit. The extra pounds I was carrying on my body was just an external symptom of other more serious weights on my mind and spirit. I was lugging around the burdens of these mental and emotional weights in my everyday life, which in turn caused my physical weight gains with both emotional and physical sickness and pains. Before you can lose these weights, you first need to understand what these weights are and how they keep a hold on you. These weights affect your mind, dictating the way you think and how you feel about yourself, your life, and the world around you. Your body reflects these weights that you carry on your mind, and it shows up in your physical appearance, your physical health, and well being. These weights also hold your spirit down and stops you from being and expressing your true self and core personality.
Mm.
So I have these questions to all the listeners. What are the weights in your life that are holding you down? What emotional or physical burdens are you carrying around with you every day? What emotional issues are you tired of experiencing in your life? Are you ready to make changes in your life?
Mm. 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 Yeah, y'all sitting with that. I know you're gonna hit the replay and y'all gonna that is fantastic. And so that's a sample of what you can expect as you are going through this book and working this process. And the release becomes inevitable, it sounds like, Gil.
Yes. In fact, to me, this is not a self help book. I see it more as a self awareness book,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because one book isn't going to do it all,
Right.
right? I'm constantly learning from professionals like you about mental health, psychology, physical health, from trainers to
Mm-hmm.
nutritionists. You're going to learn so many things, but you got to put yourself in that self-awareness mode
Yeah.
so you can actually start making better choices
Yes.
to what you're feeding your mind and your body so
Yes.
you can heal.
Yes. There's some books that are what they call evergreen, right? They don't ever go out of style. They're books that you can work through really for the rest of your life because as you grow and evolve, your answers may grow and evolve, and some may just be core. They may stay the same throughout. As we go through life, as our life changes and our relationships change, the burdens that we pick up along the way also change. And so, a book like yours, I can see honestly doing it in 2024, but having something very different in 2027. And but still needing to work this process that you have outlined so wonderfully for us.
Right.
And so I think this is a gift that just keeps on giving. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I'll read it when I'm preparing for events like this,
Yes.
and I'm like, did I write that? I don't remember even writing that. And I was like, ooh, I haven't done that in a while. I better get on track.
Uh-huh.
So it's and the things that I've learned, these are not new concepts.
Right.
These are concepts that have been around for thousands of years. It's just nobody either explains it
Mm-hmm.
simply
Mm-hmm.
or everything is piecemeal, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has their own agenda when it comes to this knowledge that's been with us.
Yeah.
We're just not taught as a culture
Yeah.
in our institutions how to live a healthy life and how to make changes,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know. And I intentionally wrote this book and I left out all the terminology from psychology, from
Mm-hmm.
medicine, from science, because I didn't want to distract the reader from from what the work has to be done versus
Yes.
all these terms.
Yes.
People can get kind of confused.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking my book is going to have all this terminology, no, it's very straight. In
Good.
fact, it reads like a memoir,
Okay.
and I just talk about the stages that I went through and how it helped me. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that you'll connect with your experience, your own personal experience, and start your own journey to lift those weights on your mind, body, and spirit.
I love it. I love it. Well, Gil, I could have had you on my Walls of Wellness podcast because this was a whole. I knew it was going to be a healing session. I just didn't know how healing it was going to be. So, wow. Well, tell me this. As an author, did you choose to go through a publishing house or did you choose to publish it independently?
Yeah, I chose to publish it independently because as I was thinking about publishing and I learned about the publishing industry, I realized that that's not the way I wanted to uh, control my creativity. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been a very creative person. I wanted to have full control.
Yeah.
And the publishing industry is like the record industry, where they take all your rights, they
Mm-hmm.
take most of the profit,
Mm-hmm.
and they control your creativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my goal was to create something very professional
Mm-hmm.
that no one can tell if it was, self-published. So I created my own publishing company.
Very
Right
good.
now, I'm just publishing my books, but I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
the future will bring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I worked with my son who has graphic design skills. I
Okay.
worked with people that I knew that majored in English to help me edit. So I made sure I did all the professional things, but
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have full control.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also learned that the writing process and the writing business, it takes time.
Yep.
In the publishing industry, if your book doesn't do well in 6 months, they drop you.
Mm-hmm.
My book is going to be on Amazon until Amazon is around.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how creative work should be viewed.
Right.
Okay, it's old, let's move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This knowledge doesn't end, and I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm hoping as people just continue to find out about me and
Yes.
learn from my book and move on and live their best life.
Yeah. So now, what are you doing as far as marketing? Where will you be? Do you have any events that are coming up where people can come meet you in person, get a signed copy?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to do book fairs as they come up. And I'm also going to be doing a live meetup where it's going to be focusing on how to stop emotional eating.
Mm.
Because that's how my journey started. I thought
Yeah.
what I needed to do was stop being an emotional eater. And I
Mhm.
realized, no, it's not the eating, it's the emotions.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I want to create a live weekly event where people could just come and kind of get the concept of
Okay.
what emotional eating is
Yes.
and what these steps that I talk about in my book
Okay.
can help them break that cycle. So
Yeah.
that's one way I'll promote my book. And
Okay.
ultimately, I will have online classes for people
Fantastic.
who need just one-on-one direction. Because sometimes reading a book is great, but if you're not used to the concept, it's going to be confusing.
Yeah.
Um, so I just released a podcast called the Be Present Podcast.
Okay.
If you go to my website, gilrolonbooks.com,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see all my links on the top left of the website. You'll see my Facebook, my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn, and TikTok. And so I'll be using all these avenues to promote my work, much like you. I'm enjoying your work.
Thank you.
and and this podcast, I realized in my journey that being present was a foundation that helped me to be more successful.
Mm-hmm.
Because what being present means is not what most people think about or how it's promoted. They think it's just sitting in the grass and breathing, and now you're present. No, my podcast is showing you how you can be present in your life,
Mm-hmm.
work, in your relationships, in the challenges that you face. That learning to be present in your life is also a learned skill,
Yes.
and that it might include tools like breathing and meditation,
Mm-hmm.
yoga, but you can also do meditation dancing
Go
or
on.
taking walks.
Yes.
There's ways you can uh, learn to be present. Because the thing is, being present is not through your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Being present happens through your body, it
Mm-hmm.
happens through your senses. Because if you think about it, we are a being of senses.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we experience through all our senses.
Yep.
But because we live such habitual lives,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of just forget about noticing the beautiful nature around us.
Yes.
We ignore the sounds and the sights that we love,
Mm-hmm.
caught up in our minds, and we're always thinking instead of being.
Yeah.
So my goal with the podcast is to help people to understand that concept.
Yes.
We'll also be promoting my book on that podcast. So through all these mediums, I plan to help people discover me and learn about my work. And as I continue to write more books and make more classes, and that's my goal.
Fantastic. Well, I want to put up here that someone named Chris says, "Hey, G." All right. So, any books on the horizon that we should be on the lookout for?
Yes, I have ideas for other books that are not self-help. I do have one that I haven't even started.
Okay.
I do want to write about the inner child,
Mm-hmm.
because most of our problems are coming from our problems in our childhood.
Yes.
I already have the name of it. It's going to be called The Inner Child Rules.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a double meaning.
Yes.
An inner child can rule your life,
Yep.
or the inner child makes rules
Yep.
to try to understand their life and feel protected.
Yes.
Right? So that's one. But I'm also looking to write a book, a young reader's book.
Okay.
Big science fiction guy. Um, and it's a story about this little boy from the Bronx. I wonder where that came from. And he loves science, and he has this desire and belief in quantum physics.
Mm-hmm.
So he feels he doesn't belong on this planet. He wants to travel
Mm-hmm.
to other universes.
Mm-hmm.
Finds out that he does have the power to travel.
Oh.
Some other universes reach out to him, and he starts a journey of discovery. Him and some other youths that
Oh.
that have these skills. And my goal for the book is to help kids to see that their differences are their superpower.
Yes.
Because I saw it in my boys.
Mm-hmm.
Being different, it always feels bad. Like nobody
Mm-hmm.
likes me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
fit in. Um, and I want this book to help young people see that if they have things that they love,
Yes.
it's wonderful. It's going to give you a superpower that makes you special and unique.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the goal for that book.
I love it. I love it. Well, Gil, I just thank you for so many reasons for being on the show, for going through the journey that you went through to become the author that you are, for creating the book and providing the steps for people to actually work through it. So much, and providing all of the information that you provided tonight. I mean, honestly, there's just such a healing, and your words and your process have been a gift to the audience. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, of course. All right, everyone. I have said it multiple times, and for those who have been on the show many times before, I don't know if you've ever heard me tell you to go buy a book so many times. But I'm gonna tell you again, go get this book. Get this book for yourself. Get this book for a loved one. Gift it to someone. It is a gift that is going to keep on giving. There are so many important questions that we can ask ourselves as we tell our story, as we ask ourselves, what did we lose from the trauma? What an amazing question. And, you know, my clients, my friends, my mentees, they all know these are questions that we talk about all the time and answers that we explore. So these are important core searching and getting to yourself and reestablishing that relationship with your core self becomes so, so important. We have a shout out from St. Lucia over on Instagram saying really good vibes. So thank you, Gil, for that. And just go get the book. It comes in Kindle, it comes in the ebook, it comes in the printed version, and it also comes in hardback. For those who are joining us for the first time, again, thank you for joining us. For those who are regulars, thank you and welcome back. I got to say, it's been a special hello to April, who is watching. I always shout out and say hello to her. I feel like it's one of those Carol Burnett moments, where she used to pull in her ear to recognize her grandmother. I always say hello to April because I know she smiles when I do it. I also want to take a moment and invite people to subscribe to the Ask Dr. Walls 525 YouTube channel. This has been a power packed week. I have talked to five authors so far. I will be finishing the week tomorrow at 5 p.m. with Nicole Wolverton. She is an author of horror books. Now, for y'all who know me, I am not a horror person. So we will see if I make it through, but I know that there are a lot of people who do enjoy the horror genre, and she seems to have a really, really great book. So please join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. And then Sunday, I'm super excited. This is fresh, hot off the press. I will be talking with martial artist, actor, author, and world changer Vincent Lynn, excuse me, and I'll be doing a special Dr. Walls and Friends episode with him on Sunday at 6 p.m. And you can see the write up on that if you check in on the playlist and read his bio. His bio will just blow your mind. It's long, but trust me, you're going to want to read every piece of it because it reads as a book itself. But tonight, again, Gil, I just want to say thank you to you and continued success. And I'm going to roll back, and I think I'm going to pull you on a Walls of Wellness episode if you're open to come back and do another show.
Oh, definitely. And
Okay.
anyone listening, if you go to my website, there's a contact me area. If you have any questions, personal, professional, whatever you want to know, I'm an open book, and I'll help you any way I can.
Fantastic. Thank you. So be sure to take him up on that. All right, everyone. So I'm going to say, fly, Eagles, fly. Y'all are now released. Go watch the second half of this Eagles game. I know we appreciate you coming and hanging out with us. Until we meet again, as always, God bless and continue to live your greatest life. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a great night. Bye bye.